Hey guys, this is Sid Patel, CEO of Beverage Trade Network and the host of the Wine Whiskey Read Show. In this episode, I'm going to chat with Martin Reid. He's the founder of the Gin Cooperative, who's really, promoting Scottish gin across the world. And we take a deep dive into, how to promote Scottish gin, how to grow your gin brand, and what you can expect in 2025. So enjoy the show.
I think people, consumers, whether it's on trade or off trade, don't mind having to pay a little bit more if they know that they know the story behind the brand. People buy from people. If you've got a really strong story, a really good quality liquid, it's packaged really well, I think that will always outsell or always have a lot more appeal than something that's got a bit of a fractured story, or why did you start up a gin brand? Well, gin's popular, so we wanted to make money. You'll never have long-term success with a story like that. Great storytelling is one thing. How you market your business and your brand is important. Gin brands need to know, are you a gin brand, or are you a spirits brand, or are you a distillery brand? We've seen a number of different Scottish gin brands evolve and adapt to include other spirits in their portfolio, but their brand name is gin.
Hey guys, this is Sid Patel, CEO of Beverage Trade Network and your host of the Wine, Whiskey and Read Show. This one is a great episode for the gin brands, especially, if you are a Scottish gin brand. I'm talking with Martin Reid from the Gin Cooperative, who's really been, pushing the category, have been really the foundational voice behind, promoting the Scottish gin around the world. And we're going to pick his brain on how to navigate in 2025, especially if you are a gin producer. So Martin, thanks for joining me here.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me on this morning, Sid. Hopefully your listeners and audience will enjoy what we've got to discuss.
Great. So I love what you've done, with the cooperative, and we'll deep dive into that. And would love to hear, what was the reason of the foundation, and how are the values aligned, and what kind of help you are doing to the producers.
The Gin Cooperative came about. It was really myself and my wife, who's my co-founder as well. We bought a Scottish gin. We believed it was made local to us. We bought it one Christmas for lots of family and friends. We sent it out. We told them this is a local gin. It later transpired it wasn't being made locally. It was actually being made elsewhere out with Scotland. So it really opened our eyes to this issue around transparency in sort of Scottish gin, and businesses being able to tap into and use Scotland, the brand, when really for us as consumers, we felt that to call yourself a Scottish gin, it should at least be made in Scotland. So really that kind of motivated, it was more my wife originally to go and give up her career in oil and gas, and she started up the Gin Cooperative as a public platform, a format to showcase the world of Scottish gin, but in a transparent way. So, where gin's produced, how it's made, and originally we started off as a membership-based business, so we work with producers, and in return they got a number of different membership benefits. And it's all just kind of evolved and grown from there, to be honest.
Amazing. And is that just the Scottish gin, or also other gin producers you can?
It's just, well, as we're both proud Scots, we felt that, Scottish gin was something we've seen in more and more bars over the years. We'd been gin drinkers for a long time, but we were more attracted to Scottish gin, obviously being Scottish. And, as we got to know Scottish gin, we got to learn more about the stories behind the brands, and we really saw an exciting opportunity to do something, not only establish a business for ourselves, but also something that could help educate consumers and trade as well. So it all really just grew from, as all great things do, sitting having a drink one night, and we just got chatting.
Amazing. So let's I think we all know that gin has been a little flat overall, since last couple of years for sure, around the world. What is your prediction or synopsis around the gin category and the Scottish gin category moving into the next 12 to 18 months?
I think we've definitely seen oversaturation of the gin market in general, that's for sure. I think part of that has came about because there's been an awful lot of people seeing the popularity of gin and have perhaps thought it's quite a quick way to make a quick buck.
Mm-hmm.
rather than people coming into gin who care about the category, who care about how the spirit's produced, who care about and invest in their brand. So I certainly think that has been an issue. I also think that the flavoured gin market is it's been a massive part of gin's growth over the last sort of 5 or 6 years. And I think the issue with that has been there's been an awful lot of products released that have very little juniper and have got very little resemblance to gin. They've got more in common with flavoured vodkas. And I remember I had a discussion with an ex-Diageo member of staff, 2018, 2019, and they'd predicted then that the flavoured gin category would go the same way as the flavoured vodka market. He mentioned at one point, one brand had, it was something like 70 plus flavoured vodkas in their portfolio, and he said, too much, consumer choice is great, but too much consumer choice is a bad thing. And that's certainly what seems to have happened. But I think in a way the gin category's perhaps got a unique opportunity to reset. I think that a lot of brands have looked at streamlining their portfolio of spirits. They've perhaps reduced the number of flavoured gins they've got, and they're looking more at the classic styles of gin, London Dry, Navy Strength. So I think long term for the consumer, it can only be a good thing where brands are looking at, the focus is on producing premium quality spirits rather than following trends.
So I think I'm hearing that, okay, reduce your SKU count, let's say focus on your one or two, and maybe the original, flavor profiles of the gin. And I'm also hearing the consumer preferences, they are going back to the originals and not, trying the flavors anymore, let's say. On the markets, like, are you seeing any emerging opportunities or channels? Like, you think the bars are doing more than the off trade, or you think US is doing better than UK? Give me a global and the channel scenario there.
The on trade has had a tough time. Obviously, it's just came through COVID, so I think hospitality in general has suffered a great deal. And I think what they're doing is they're being a lot more careful with which brands they're taking. They're putting behind the bar, and that might come down to price point. But I think that is where gin brands, Scottish gin brands, have got a unique opportunity to perhaps go in and build some really strong relationships with the on trade. And I think part of that is educating the on trade. I think education in the on trade is a big thing. I think brands being able to educate bartenders how to serve our gin. Here's our brand story. In turn, often a bartender can be your best brand ambassador for you. I think in terms of the off trade, I think retail has also suffered. I think during COVID there was a lot of restrictions put in place. But I mean, it's a difficult question to answer in terms of the US versus UK. I think there are trends where the on trade, it wants to stock premium spirits, it wants to stock quality spirits, it wants to stock spirits that have got a great story, because it makes it a lot easier to sell on their menus, and at the end of the day, it's your menu that sells your drinks or sells your offering. And, it goes the same for the on-trade as well. I think brands have to have a visual presence on the shelf. At the end of the day, consumers buy with their eyes. It's what entices you to pick something up off the shelf.
Maybe let's go where the consumer is going, right? So what are the 2 or 3 massive shifts that you've seen in the consumer preferences when it comes to buying gin, or for a repeat order as well? So maybe that's what obviously the retailers and the bartenders will want to stock, right?
Yeah. I mean, to start with, I think we're quite fortunate here in Scotland. We've got a number of businesses and organisations that have heavily promoted the Scottish gin category. So whether that's a Gin Cooperative or Scotland Food and Drink, for example, they host Meet the Buyer sessions. So they'll bring exporters in and buyers from big supermarkets. So we're quite lucky in terms of that.
Nice.
I think as well, in terms of Scottish gin, I think where we're at with that in terms of consumer trends, I think often, consumers dictate what the trends are. So there is this message where they're looking for good quality premium spirits that have got a good story. I think provenance has become more important. I think people I think your food and drink in general across the world, especially in modern countries, I think people want to know where things are produced, how it's produced, who makes it. And I think if you can tap into that storytelling element where you've got a great story to tell, you've got some form of provenance, I think people, consumers, whether it's on trade or off trade, don't mind having to pay a little bit more if they know that they know the story behind the brand. You know, people buy from people. That's what I've always said. People buy from people. And I think if you've got a really strong story, a really good quality liquid, it's packaged really well, I think that will always outsell or always have a lot more appeal than something that's got, you know, a bit of a fractured story, or, you know, why did you start up a gin brand? Well, gin's popular, so we wanted to make money. No, you'll never have long-term success with a story like that.
Yep, just one small fun fact. I have my own gin brand as well, and it's tough, man. It's tough to sell in UK. I tried as well, and knowing the whole ecosystem, it's still tough for me. So I understand it's
Yeah,
really hard these days. On the innovation, Martin, right? Like, you can always think of innovation as a broader term. That's where I would want to go. Like, it can be in terms of process or idea, or can be a category or flavor, or packaging, whatever
yeah.
comes to mind. What have you seen some successful companies, doing for 2025, let's say?
I think, well, I mean, innovation in the world is distilling in general can be slow to come about. I think it's often baby steps. I think it's often got to be led by the big global producers, and I think some of the innovative things that they introduce then trickle down.
Mm-hmm.
I think in terms of Scottish gin, a great example is Arbiki. They launched their Nadar gin in, I think it was 2020, and it was the world's first climate positive gin. So it was made using triple distilled peas.
Mm-hmm.
The Arbiki distillery is on the family farm, so they've got access to various crops. Anyway, so they've got complete traceability of where their crops are coming from, how they're being used, and that came about was the Arbiki master distiller Kirsty Black, as part of her PhD project, wanted to create a gin that was a climate positive gin. So literally for every bottle of gin, it's minus X amount of CO2 per bottle. So it's really blending the craftsmanship of distilling with science as well. And I think that'll be something that we'll probably see a lot more of in 2025 in terms of Scottish gin. Will be more Scottish distillers looking to grow their botanicals locally. I mean, of course, in Scotland, growing lemons and oranges, and because of our climate, it just, on the commercial scale needed, it just isn't possible. So I think Arbiki's a great example of innovation, and sort of looking at their sustainability as well. I think a number of other producers are also using organic grain neutral spirit, so I think that's a positive step as well, where the grain neutral spirit is being made without the need for fertilizers and other chemicals in its production. But like I said, I think in terms of innovation across Scottish gin and perhaps a wider world of distilling, I think it's still baby steps. I think these things they drip down slowly, either from bigger brands, or you've got a smaller brand who really pushes the boat out and tries to do something completely different. I mean, innovation, it's a tough one in spirits, I think, because a lot of these processes are tried and tested. Distillation, whiskey, certainly in Scotland, is highly regulated, so there's only so much wiggle room for them to do things. So I mean, I think the innovation we might see will be across the supply chain. Whether that's a still manufacturer creating a new super energy efficient still, or a more environmentally friendly way to grow botanicals. I think the supply chain will perhaps be
Interesting.
a place where we'll see a lot more innovation.
Okay. On selling sustainability, right? Like I also believe that UK is really the first leader when it comes to sort of, category moves or brings trends, especially London, let's say,
Yeah.
and then US catches up and then rest of the world. So I think UK has been a big fan of sustainability, and I can see people putting money where their mouth is. Uh, US is struggling. I'm going back to US more and more because the listeners majority are of the US as well. So how
Yeah.
can brands really, what is a good way to sell your story if you are, pushing sustainability? Like, are there any tips, or have you seen any good ways brands are putting in their decks or websites or materials or
Yeah.
cold calling that pitch?
I think the sustainability topic is one that can easily add green credentials to your brand. So, for example, there's a number of Scottish gin producers have looked at getting bespoke bottles made. It's allowed them to create fantastic looking packages, but it's also reduced their weight. So, in terms of shipping their bottles from their supplier to their distillery, and then those bottles then going out to their customers, to the on trade, to the off trade, a lot of them use the statistics or the facts behind how much their carbon footprint has been reduced by. Numbers can be a good stats. Everyone loves a good statistic. So I think having those green credentials and those green stats can really help you get that message across that you're trying to do something positive for the environment. I mean, I think in terms of Scottish gin, there's a lot of distilleries introduced green energy schemes. So, for example, there's Ben and Turek. They're on a large family estate. They built a hydro dam. So literally every time it rains, it creates energy for their distillery, and their still is powered off the electricity generated by their hydro dam. Glenwivis Distillery, it's another one. When it first got built, right off the bat, their plans included a wind turbine and a wood burning pellet boiler. So right away from the very start, they had those green credentials and initiatives right from the start. And I think it can be more difficult for established brands to then almost retrospectively go back and whether it's a distillery retrofitting to have green energy, whether it's then a brand going back and getting a new bottle made. I think retrospectively, if I was a gin brand, I know from the offset, if I was to start up today, I would be doing everything I could to have as much green credentials across my product, my brand, and also my supply chain. I think, where you can work with supply chain partners who have strong green credentials, it's a positive rub-on effect for yourself as well.
And I think some big retailers have already started that the suppliers of supplier also have to be green, like, the one more step sort of protocols, especially when it comes to the big chains. Do you think it's a myth that green or sustainable products is expensive and less tastier, let's say? And what's your pick on that?
I think it's got a certain appeal to people. I think people, if they're buying things, they like to feel good about it. They like to feel that they're perhaps contributing something positive to the world. So I certainly, whether it makes a product tastier, it's tough to know. It's a really difficult question to answer correctly. But
no, meaning, on the other way, like how junk food is tastier. So it's like, in wine especially, I can relate that organic wines are not as commercial delicious as, So do you think that backfires, or people have understood that, okay, obviously if it's organic, it's going to taste like this?
I think everyone's got different tastes, and I think
that's true.
I think sometimes people might sacrifice taste to simply say that, well, look at this, I bought this environmentally friendly or organic product. Might taste not that great, but people like to show off sometimes. They like to look how good I am. So yeah, I think that in general, I think the more gin producers can include a green element in their, whether it's supply chain or their brand, I think can only be a positive thing for the world, but also a positive thing for them to have something great to talk about,
I want to go on some tactical question here for the producers, right? Look, I mean, based on your experience, can you give me 2 or 3 strategies that, can build loyalty for Scottish gin producers, especially if you want the consumers to stick around the Scottish gin? What kind of things you've seen they can do?
I mean, I think you have to have a fantastic story to tell. I think people buy into a story. I think all brands need a fantastic story. I think in terms of Scottish gin, we're quite lucky that every Scottish gin has got its own unique identity. It's got its own unique story to tell. I think most Scottish gins as well, so great storytelling is one thing. I think how you market your business and your brand is important. I think gin brands need to know, are you a gin brand or are you a spirits brand or are you a distillery brand? We've seen a number of different Scottish gin brands evolve and adapt to include other spirits in their portfolio, but their brand name is gin.
That's a very interesting and first time I'm hearing this, but it's a pretty good point. You can be a whole portfolio and the umbrella company name, and then you just have an SKU gin versus just the gin and
Yeah,
the whole thing.
yeah,
That's an interesting thing.
yeah.
And that's
I think your brand architecture is important. You need to start at the very top. What are
mm,
you? Distillery, spirits brand, gin brand.
mm.
I've always advised other Scottish gin brands that I've spoken to in the past who are maybe starting up or looking for a bit of guidance. I've always said you need to know who you are so you can tell your story.
And you think if you are a gin brand, let's say Scottish gin brand, that I'm assuming would have a more loyalty than a part of a Scottish gin in a Diageo portfolio for some. Like if Johnny Walker launches a gin brand, obviously the loyalty won't have
Yeah,
the same as just Clankery launching another gin, right?
yeah. Of course,
Because you're known for the gin.
yeah. But I think if you start off as a Scottish distillery, and
Mm,
you release a Scottish gin, I think the Scottish gin element kind of ties into that.
true, true.
So I think you've already got that connection with Scotland there.
But I
You,
think you're right. The ultimate loyalty will come if you are just the gin,
yeah,
you know.
yeah. And I think another thing brands need to do is present their branding consistently.
Mm,
I think when you're building a portfolio of spirits, I think it's fantastic to have unique individual identities
mm,
across your products, so whether it's a vodka or a gin. But I also believe then when you release another gin, I think there's got to be some sort of symmetry with what you've already released. I think that is the only way you can really build strong brand recognition on the shelf is to have consistency across how your branding's applied and how your packaging looks. I must add as well, I think Scottish gins in general have done really well to avoid the cliches of Scotland. So the tartan, the bagpipes, the haggis, some of
mhm.
these older, outdated things that we're perhaps known for. If you look at most of the Scottish gin brands that are on the market today, these are
Mhm.
modern looking. They mix a bit of tradition, a bit of heritage, but a lot of them, stand shoulder to shoulder with other brands around the world. So I think they've done that really well.
What are the like three or four important markets for Scottish gin? After UK, let's say.
Asia is a massive growth market for
But in Asia,
Scottish. Yeah.
Martin, which countries? Like, what are the two or three top
Well,
exporters?
I think the Philippines. The Philippines is a mass. It's the biggest
Oh,
biggest
wow. Okay.
gin market in the world.
No, I
But
did not know that.
biggest consumer of gin in the world.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. Well, according to the stats, anyway. But
Yeah, yeah.
I think the Asian market in general. I think it offers, especially developing countries in the Asian market. I think what we've seen is trends where these people have got a lot more disposable income. There's a massive push on premium quality luxury goods. So whether it's fashion brands, whether it's cars, so I think, and as well, I think in Asia, a lot of the bartenders, you see it on the top 50 cocktails list and other lists. These Asian bars are like, they're hitting really high standards. They know how to do hospitality, they know how to mix drinks. So I think there's a massive opportunity there for Scottish gin to tap into that as being, a premium ingredient in your cocktails. And a lot of these Asian bartenders are treated like rock stars.
Hmm.
And I think in a certain way, I think other countries are slowly catching up. I think we've all
So if you were just the local brand and you had to pick two countries to focus on in 2025, where you think would be the best use of your time and money, Asia would be one continent you would
yeah,
pick,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And in
I th-
that emerging nations like Thailand, Vietnam, where we are also
yeah,
seeing a lot of growth,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know.
I think another untapped area for Scottish gin would be North America as well. I think
Mm,
it's
interesting.
got its annual Tartan Day in New York, Tartan Week Festival. We've seen Scottish gin brands invited over there as part of it, who have then went on to get export deals. And in America's got a lot of ties to Scotland. I think it's something like 20 to 25 million Americans have got Scottish ancestors or heritage. So I think, and I appreciate as well, there's a lot of complexities around the American market. I think each state's got its own laws, its own complexities, its own hurdles to get over. But I think North America is a massive growth market for Scottish gin. We
Hmm.
certainly see through the stats on our website, through our shop, and through the Gin Cooperative that there's a massive amount of traffic coming from America wanting to learn about Scottish gin, which is a great thing. I think
Hmm.
another market, it's not country specific, but the global travel retail duty free is another
Mm.
area that's got a lot of growth opportunities. I've over the last 10, 15 years of travelling, I've seen more and more Scottish gins appearing in the duty free areas at the airport. So I think it's a fantastic, bearing in mind as well, a lot of visitors maybe come to Scotland, they buy a gin, they might not be able to take it through airport security. Or put it in their suitcase. So there's that issue as well. So if you've had a fantastic time in Scotland, you see a Scottish gin sitting there in duty free, well, you can pick up a bottle and take it home and enjoy it.
Mm. When you enter a new market, right? Like give me two or three sort of techniques to grab attention or to, educate people about Scottish gin category.
Yeah.
Let's say North America, for example, if you're targeting some market like Nebraska where very less awareness is there. If you were just launching and working with an importer, what are the things that you would do?
I think you have to have a strong online presence.
Mm,
If you've got a strong online presence, I think no matter where you are in the world, people can get access to that. So I think having a really strong, easy to use website that's
mm,
clearly branded, that's got fantastic lifestyle photography, that really tells your story, I think it's a basic of any marketing for a brand. I think strong branded content on your social media as well. I think, social media for the most part are free to use resources sitting there waiting to be used. So I think having strong branded marketing content helps. So whether that is lifestyle photography, whether it's videos, whether it's behind the scenes at your distillery, whether it's a meet the team feature, I think there's lots of things that you can do as a business to help make potential customers feel more connected to your business and know your business a bit more. A strong online presence in terms of your website is a gimme. And I think strong online presence on social media as well, with really well crafted, visually appealing, branded content.
hmm So I want to go on sort of, the growth of tequila and mezcal and use that as a learning of, what other kind of categories can pick from that. Why did that happen? I want to just pick your brain on what can we learn and what can we apply that we can control.
I mean, I think in terms of how mezcal and tequila is viewed in the UK, I think I think its image has changed a lot, and I think before tequila for me, and I'm sure for many other people on a night out, was later on in the night, right? Let's get a round of tequila and do a shot. I think that's always been the way that it's kind of been seen in the UK, but I think the on-trade has helped a lot. I think how tequila is served in menus has changed. I think you're seeing a lot more tequila and mezcal-based cocktails. And I think that message is slowly creeping through to other territories, into menus across the world where tequila isn't and mezcal isn't just something you knock back. It's something to be savoured and enjoyed. So, and I think part of that has came from perhaps the educational aspect that the tequila and mezcal brands are putting out there, that there are numerous ways you can serve our liquids and enjoy them. So it doesn't have to just be done in a shop. I think it's definitely had a public makeover in the last 10 to 15 years. And then I think one brand I saw recently that rebranded was the 1800 tequila.
Mm-hmm.
It rebranded, so its new packaging sort of tapped into its heritage, its history.
Mm.
Tequila Ocho it rebranded, and I believe they've just opened their new distillery, so they've got a visitor's experience where people will be able to come in and actually physically engage the brand, which I think is a great thing for any spirits brand. If you've got a distillery, offer an experience where you can. I think as well, there's no getting away from the fact that tequila and mezcal has had a massive investment from celebrities.
True.
I think
Yeah,
it's
a lot of people have ridden the wave, so it
yeah,
just helped basically. But
yeah,
let's say, like, bringing you back to one or two things, if you were a distiller, how do we make gin cool again? Because the culture, the coolness, because it's so old, it's becoming a challenge to
yeah,
make it cool again.
yeah,
Have you got any ideas? I mean, unless Taylor Swift talks about it, you know what I mean? Like, are there
yeah.
any ways to make it like trendy again?
The thing is, I mean, for me as a gin lover, I've always thought gin's cool anyway. So I think a big part of gin is the tonic. The tonic.
Mm,
I think there's an awful lot of people try gin, or people we've spoken to have said, I don't like gin, but in reality, it's the tonic they don't like. So,
true.
so perhaps we're quite fortunate in Scotland. We've got Water Gregor's tonic. It's made literally about 20 miles from where we are, and it's a Scottish produced tonic. It's fantastic. It's lower level of carbonation, lower level of quinine, and it just lets the gin shine through. So certainly, I think you know here's how you make gin cool, right? Drink gin however you want to drink it. You know,
I like that.
knock down those barriers, knock down any expectation, and I think that's been part of gin's success as well. Is the fact that 10, 15, 20 years ago, you would never walk into a pub in Britain and see a bunch of blokes all standing around drinking gin and tonic.
Mm.
So I think it gin, it crosses over the gender barrier, it crosses over the all backgrounds, all walks of life. I think gin has got a wide
Plus, I think it's got a lot of advantages. I mean, I can start drinking gin 10 a.m. as well, lunchtime, evening time. It's all day sort of thing, not like a
yeah,
whiskey where you sort of look for an evening.
yeah.
As a promoter of the category, as really someone who's trying to push Scottish gin, what is your vision or a message to the producers on, hey guys, let's do this, and this is what I would love to see our category,
Yeah,
in
yeah.
future.
I think, it's worth mentioning as well that Scottish gin as a term doesn't have any legal protection. So anywhere in the world, you could make a gin and stick Scottish gin in the front of the label. So I think it's important that Scottish gin at some point comes to have some form of protection in the future, just to protect what's been created so far and grown so far. And I think it's important that the term Scottish gin, it's got to come to represent more than just a gin made in Scotland as well. I think it should represent a quality spirit produced in Scotland with care, skill and love, made by passionate people who craft fantastic liquids. I think it's important that brands continue to educate the on-trade and off-trade and consumer. I think, unfortunately, long term, and we're seeing it already, we will see a number of Scottish gin brands and other brands calling it a day simply because they just can't get the sales, they just can't get the volume that they need to sustain a business, And it's sad when, we've come to know a lot of gin producers personally as friends. And it's always sad when you get a phone call or an email to say that. But on the flip side, I think it also perhaps says that there was perhaps an issue there in the business that maybe needed addressed sooner. So I think that's always a shame. The future of Scottish gin will see a lot more gin distilleries offering experiences. I think gin experiences is a great way of bringing consumers into your business. It's a great way of selling your brand to them. It's a great way of building that connection and brand loyalty. There's nothing like going into distillery, seeing where something's made, speaking to the people who make it. you've got the aromas, you've got the flavors, you've got, and done well, a great brand experience can be had at a distillery, So I think more distilleries offering gin experiences in the future is something we'll see a lot more of. As well, it's worth bearing in mind, in relative terms, the Scottish gin category is only about 20 years old. If you think about Hendrick's Gin, I would say was the first Scottish gin, and it came out in, I believe it was 1999, although it was 2004 before it was UK. And it's only been in the last couple of years it started tapping into its Scottish roots again. Because up until that point, if you looked at Hendrick's, perhaps besides a little wee thing on the label saying product of Scotland, it never really promoted itself as a Scottish gin. So I think the fact that Hendrick's Gin, a couple of years ago, they built their Gin Palace, this massive distillery, which is it looks like a total fun house. It looks like a total crazy, fantastic place to work. But they're bringing in, people from the on-trade from all over the world to come and experience this fantastic Hendrick's Gin Palace in Scotland. So I think experiences will definitely play a massive part. And, I think it's all about just keeping a bit of momentum. It's about keeping presence in the market as well. And I think it's about telling honest, good quality stories about why, who you are as a brand, what you do, and what makes you unique as well. So I think there's a lot of different elements will all play into the future of Scottish gin.
Hey guys, thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed this. If you are a spirits producer and trying to, grow your brand in the UK market or international markets, would love to work with your brand. So go to londonspiritscompetition.com. That's a competition that we do in London where real trade buyers are the judges. We evaluate products by quality, value, and package. That would be great if you can submit your brands there and you can yourself see the benefits on how we can help grow your brand. So once again, go to londonspiritscompetition.com and enter your products there before the submission deadline.